You're tuning into Financial Fitness Northwest live on 1150 KKNW. We provide our listeners with information from business professionals to bring solutions to your daily life and local charities to provide the opportunity to give back to your community as well. Today, we are talking with Trey. Trey graduated with his master's in social work from the University of Washington in 2011 and soon after began his career with Amara. He holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Hampton University and a master's degree in human development and family studies from the University of Illinois. Trey spent 4.5 years as a case manager at Amara, assessing, licensing, and supporting foster parents and their foster children. In April 2016, he took a new role leading Amara's efforts in outreach and recruitment of foster parents. Personally, Trey and his partner have been foster parents for about 1.5 years and are currently have a 2-year-old foster child. In his free time, Trey enjoys cooking, traveling, and playing with his pug. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Welcome, Trey. We're excited to hear about your organization. So can you just kind of give us an overview of what it's all about, what you guys do?
Yeah, so we are a local kind of nonprofit agency. We're located, headquartered in Seattle. We also have an office in Tacoma. Been around since 1921, so a long time.
Wow.
In the community, meeting really the needs of vulnerable children, and currently how we define that is really our foster children. Kind of have 3 main programs. One is our foster care program, so we license foster homes, support them, get them trained, and then really do case management when they have a kid in their home. We do a lot of long-term foster care placement, and a lot of, for those kids that aren't able to reunify with their families, our foster families will then adopt the children to make that home their forever home. And then we also have what we call our emergency sanctuary programs. And so these are really homes we rent, one in Seattle, one in Tacoma. And it's a place for kids that are just being removed from their parents' home and placed into foster care. And just kind of gives some stability in those first kind of 3 to 5 days. And it just gives the state social worker more time to figure out, should this kid go to a relative long term? Should they go into foster care? Or maybe the kid can be returned back home with some in-home services. And then our final program is what we call our post-adoption program. So, a lot of our families adopt younger children. And so we know issues around identity in adoption can often come up at different developmental stages. And so we want to be there for the life of our family to have resources for them. So we have a post-adoption program where they can call if they're ever struggling with anything down the road, and we can kind of help them out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So can you tell us a little bit about your sanctuary program and, how that works?
Yeah. So like I said, it's for kids just being removed from their homes, placed into foster care. Up to 5 kids can go there at a time. We typically do kids from the ages of 0 to 12. Okay. But if there's a large sibling set and there's older teenage siblings, we'll take the older sibling if there's younger kids as well. I think the big thing about that is that it's half staffed by paid, what we call therapeutic child specialists, and we also half by volunteers. So we always have 1 or 2 volunteers on hand, depending on how many kids and kind of what their needs and behaviors are like. And so we're always looking for more volunteers to be part of that. There's an onboarding process, obviously a background clearance and some training to know how to work with traumatized kids. But the minimum commitment is 1 shift a month for about 6 hours. And so especially in our Tacoma one, we just opened that one up about 4 or 5 months ago, and we're really looking for more volunteers to kind of keep the calendar smoothly going and making sure all our shifts are filled. But we're always looking for more as well for the King County one in Seattle.
And so what are the volunteers' responsibility? Just to kind of spend time with the kids, make them feel comfortable? Yeah.
So it's a really home-like setting. And so it's, cooking dinner, putting kids to bed, bottles, changing diapers. Both of them are really close to parks or going to parks. We have a lot of community partners, so with the zoos and the aquariums, so we can take the kids for free. And then every kid that comes into foster care has to have an initial medical screen. And so we've got partnerships with local hospitals where we can take the kids. And so the volunteers may just sit in the waiting room, because we typically have to take all the kids, even if not only one of them needs a medical screen. So just hanging out with kids in the lobby of the hospital while the kids that need to be seen by the doctor are being seen. So just hanging out with kids and just doing kid stuff, fun stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So how do the kids get to you? Do you work with the state then, or when they're being taken out of a home, or how does that work?
Great question. So Amara is what we call a child placing agency, and so we are licensed by the state to kind of license foster homes to kind of have these foster care programs. So they kind of have oversight of our programs. And so, yeah, we have great partnerships with the CPS, Child Protective Services. So when they're moving a kid any time of day and they can't find a relative immediately or a suitable foster home, they'll call our sanctuary and say, hey, I've got little Johnny. He's 5 years old. These are his kind of needs that we know of. Do you have space? And if we have room and it will mesh with the other kids in the sanctuary, then we'll take kids. So we take kids on a 24-hour, 7 days a week. The sanctuary never closes for holidays or weekends. It's open at any time because we know kids come into foster care, in non-traditional hours. So we got to be open and available to kind of meet that need.
Right. So then when they come to the sanctuary, then from there, do they go potentially to a foster home?
Yeah.
That's like step one, and then move on.
In our state, we have a shortage of foster homes right now, so we don't have enough homes to meet all the needs of the kids in our foster care system. And so that 3 to 5 days just really allows the social worker to find that correct foster home or that relative. Relatives always are the first choice for foster kids. And if there's no relative, then it gives them time to seek out a good foster home that hopefully can meet that kid's needs. And then that kid doesn't have to bounce from home to home to home while it's in the foster care system. And then some kids may go back home. Say there's a domestic violence situation, the kids are removed, and then, but the abusive partner has left the home, and so now the kids maybe can go back with the other partner that wasn't a part of that, and then have some in-home services. So some kids will return back home to their parents after that time in the sanctuary too.
Oh, that's nice. The sanctuary gives you some options. What do you do if you can't find a foster home? If we have a shortage, I mean, is there ever a case where you don't have a home to put a kid in?
So typically what the state does, I mean, hopefully if our sanctuary is full, hopefully they can find a foster home, either an Amara home or just any home in the state. But occasionally, unfortunately, there are kids that are sleeping in hotel rooms with social workers. So it's one kind of social worker supervising kids because they can't find a home that day or that night. And then they will typically kind of hang out in the state office all day, try to find placement. If they can't find placement again, then they go back into the hotel. And we also have what's called receiving home foster homes. So they really just take kids on a nightly basis. And so in that first week, a kid may have 3 different foster homes or be in a hotel. And we really heard about that need and said, you know what, we can do something better for these kids as they're first entering the foster care system. And so the sanctuary really is there to hopefully mitigate that and really just have one nice placement until that we figure out what the long-term placement is for those kiddos. Yeah.
Wow. So what does, like the ideal prospective foster family look like?
Yeah. So Amara has always prided ourselves on really being inclusive and open with our definition of family. So we are one of the first agencies in the state, and I believe the nation, to work with single families that want to foster or adopt. We work with same-sex couples. So for us, what your family configuration really doesn't look like, but really your desire to make a difference in a kid's life, I think, is the biggest kind of thing we're looking for. And really, foster parenting is not always easy. Given the kind of past neglect and trauma these kids experience, they can have some extra special needs or behaviors that are maybe different than kind of normal children that have been raised in kind of a stable environment. And so just be able to meet those needs, being open to learn, I think open to learn how you envision parenting, how you parent kids with trauma, and I think flexibility, just being able to kind of be flexible and know that the foster care system is trying to do good work, but it's a big, large state system, and sometimes things may happen, but kind of being flexible and really just making sure you can give that kid an awesome kind of stable experience while they're in your home for 2 weeks or maybe forever if the kid gets adopted.
Is most people's that go into foster parenting, is their intention generally to adopt children, or is it, I don't know, maybe probably a mix? But
yeah, it's kind of a mix. Definitely families that work with Amara tend to have that end goal of adoption. That's why we tend to do more kind of long-term placements, but Amara will work with any family along the spectrum. So there's like those receiving homes, and then there's kind of short-term foster placements. So I'm a foster parent, and one of our kiddos, we got him at 4 months, and we knew pretty early on, within 3 months, they wanted to return that kid home. So that's more of a kind of a short-term foster placement. So there's some homes out there just really do the short-term or the weeks or the months because they don't really want to do long-term. So yeah, it's kind of all in between kind of what you're open to doing. The state needs you regardless. If you can just do a night, you can do a night. If you can do 3 months, if you can do 2 years, the state needs you regardless of kind of however long you can kind of do it.
It all helps, right?
Yeah, it all helps. Yeah.
Huh.
I can't believe that, what you were saying, that you guys, are more open-minded about, the different types of families. It just seems crazy to me that anybody would limit that because we're short on foster families and people want to love and support these children. It's just crazy to me, right?
Yeah.
So it's amazing that you guys think outside the box, I guess. It just seems common sense to me. But so about, you're becoming a foster parent. How long does it take? Is there what's the requirements if you wanted to become a parent?
Yeah. So there's definitely an onboarding process, some training. So there's some required state trainings that are required. You have to be valid in kind of first aid CPR and kind of keep that valid throughout your foster licensing journey. And then if you work with Amara, we have kind of a required 6-hour training on a Saturday that you would do pretty early on in the process. And it just kind of talks about trauma in foster kids. We at Amara are also really big proponents of open adoption. So for our families that do adopt, making sure that the kids have some connection back to their birth families. And that's a huge spectrum depending on the situation, but just making sure that kid knows their full story about, of their birth family. So we stress that a lot. And we also stress really having relationships with the birth parents while you're fostering, regardless if adoption's your goal or not. When foster kids, when they can see their foster parents and their biological parents really on the same team and the best interest for them, it really helps kind of ease their anxiety while being in foster care. So we really want our foster parents and birth parents to kind of team up as much as possible. And we also talk about kind of transracial caregiving. So it's when you take in a foster kid that has a different race or ethnicity as you, because obviously we're not matching by race when we place a kid. So we're just making sure you're supporting that kid's cultural needs as well.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You guys are doing incredible things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens? I mean, you had mentioned the kids, they might have issues. Obviously, they've had a hard time, right? If they're in that situation, maybe some hard things have happened. So what kind of support do you offer for the parents that are?
That's a good question.
Yeah. So I think the big part about working with Amara is you get your own kind of social worker or case manager they get you trained, they support you, they write your home study, which is kind of a legal document that kind of approves folks for foster care and adoption. Is kind of like an autobiography or a biography of what does your house look like, where are kids going to sleep, what are your thoughts about parenting, what do you do for work, all those type of things. And so they'll write that, and then once you're licensed, they'll help find kind of a good match of all the foster kids. So we get emails and calls daily from various state offices around kids in their office that need placement, and so we help our families with that matching process. And then once they're matched with a kid, we're there to support them. We go out within 48 hours of the home with placement, and then we go out at minimum once a month, but we'll definitely go out as much as you need us. So we definitely just provide support and then just training. So we really make sure our families understand what trauma looks like in kids and kind of what are some kind of research-based practices on how you parent these kids that may be a little bit different. A quick example is, timeouts is kind of the traditional model of parenting where the kid does something, they get upset and agitated, you send the kid to their room, they calm down, and then they come back, and then you kind of reintegrate back into whatever the family is doing. For some of our kids, being sent to their room because they're a bad child kind of increases that rejection that they may already have felt being placed into foster care, having multiple moves in foster care. And so time ins where you just keep the kid in your presence, put them on your lap, next to you on the couch, and really help them emotionally regulate in your presence. So learning little tricks like that for some kids that have had a past of trauma and neglect, just to understand. So we really have great trainings, workshops. I think the biggest thing is just having direct access to someone that's there to support you throughout that journey while you're foster parenting.
Wow. I love that. It's like your punishment is love in. I'm going
to kiss your face off.
Totally. I love
Take it.
I'm going to hug you until you behave.
That's what I do. I'm just like, okay, you're mad. I'll just kiss you to death then. So I think that's pretty incredible. What about counseling? Do you guys offer or help? The kids probably have a lot of issues of.
Great question.
Right. So do you guys offer counseling service or help connect them with counseling?
We don't have in-home counseling services, but we definitely know who the providers are out there. For people that take in kids under 3, there's a great program called Early Intervention Services or Birth to 3 Services. And so they actually come out to the home, will fully assess the kid on speech, gross motor, fine motor, adaptive skills, social, emotional. And then and if you live in King County, even if your kid doesn't qualify for anything else, the social emotional piece, they'll still come out. And it's called the TEARS program. It's like an infant mental health therapist. So they come out to the home. Like we have one for our current foster kid, and she comes out twice a month. And really, she's technically the kid's therapist around, helping him get bonded and attached. Because we really want our kids to get bonded and attached in foster care because that's what they need, because attachment's huge and really big predictors of kind of future life outcomes. And so helping kids get bonded and attached, but it really is giving the foster parents tools to meet difficult behaviors or build attachment if the kid's really struggling to bond or attach, feeding issues, sleep issues. So really, I see her as my therapist, because even though she's really there for the kid, and she's just like an extra person to kind of touch for. And then for older kids, Yeah, we definitely know who to refer to and definitely know the therapists and the counselors that have experience with foster care and adoption-related issues, because it's a little bit different than kind of a kid that maybe needs therapy for something else. So really making sure it's a good fit to meet the needs of our kiddos. Yeah.
One other quick thing I was wondering is school age. Do you try and keep them in the same school that they're in if they have to go to foster, or do they have to switch schools?
Yeah, so we don't make the placement decisions, so we just get the referrals from the state of kids that need homes, and we submit our families to the state, and the state worker will make that final determination. But yeah, the state definitely wants to keep kids in their home communities and schools as much as possible. But like I said, with the foster home shortage, oftentimes they have to go with wherever that open foster bed is, and so sometimes kids, unfortunately, will have to move out of their school system. And so there are some laws that kind of will set up transportation to get the kid to their home school, at least for a little bit. If it's a long-term foster placement, at some point they're probably going to have to transfer into the home school near the foster home. But yeah, best practice is to definitely keep kids in their home community.
Kind of a double whammy if they have to switch.
Yeah, and also our kids have visits with their parents. Reunification is always the number one goal, and so keeping the kids in the home community makes travel to and from seeing their parents easier as well. Yeah.
Right. Well, gosh, thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
Trey. So you guys need donations, right?
Yes.
You're a nonprofit.
Nonprofit. We take financial donations, obviously. Our emergency sanctuary, every kid that leaves there leaves with a duffel bag with like a week's of clothing and toothbrush and, all the basic stuff. And so we always need donations for that. We have an Amazon wish list of what supplies they need, which you can find on our website. And then, or come volunteer at the sanctuary, or become a foster parent. Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Well, check out their website. It's on our website at financialfitnessnw.com. Thank you for tuning in. When we come back, we're going to have the Riley Johnson team market update, and we're going to do some myth busting again. So the 2 myths that are holding home buyers back.